All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the presentation today with the good folks at the IRS Taxpayer Advocate Service. My name is Daryl Royce. I'm with the AARP Alaska State Office. I do have a couple of colleagues on the call today. We have our State Director, Teresa Holt, and our Operations Manager, Chris Herman. They will be on here and joining us. And if there's questions we can't answer, I can't answer, I'm sure one of either Chris or Teresa will be able to answer it. Also have our main guest today from the IRS, Brandon Spanos. Brandon, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Brandon Spanos. I've with the Taxpayer Advocate Service within the IRS. We're an independent agency within the IRS, and if we have time today, I'll tell you more about what we do. But I'm fairly new to this position. I've been here for just 4 months, and with the pandemic, our offices are closed, so I've been working from home that entire time. I am learning quite a bit, but I also have Grace with me today to help answer any questions that I haven't yet learned the answer to. Prior to coming over to the IRS, I worked for the Department of Revenue with the state of Alaska at their tax division, and have 13 years experience there with state taxes. So excited to be here and to talk about pre-filing tax tips today.
Great, thanks, Brandon. And Grace, would you like to say hello?
Absolutely. Hello, I am Grace Zesnok. I am also with the Taxpayer Advocacy Service. I am a case advocate who actively works cases. Right now I'm actually training some people, but I do still actively work some cases. I've been with IRS since 2009. I started out originally in their collections department as a revenue officer and did that up through 2017, and then moved over to the Taxpayer Advocacy Service, where I have been very happy over here and being able to assist taxpayers. So hopefully I can answer any questions that Brandon's not able to. Otherwise, we can certainly get back to you guys with anything else.
Great, thanks so much, Grace. And because we have such a small group with us today, we can either have questions come through chat, and I'm happy to monitor the chat if we'd like to go that route. If people would prefer to put their questions in chat, or if you'd prefer to unmute and ask questions live, we're a small group, acceptable, and we'd be fine with that. So with that, I'm going to share my screen and grab today's presentation, and we'll get it going here in just a second. So hopefully all of you will be able to see this. Brandon, can you see your presentation now?
I can, yep.
Okay. All right, well, Brandon, I'd like to turn it over to you at this point, and you can take it from here.
All right. So welcome to our presentation, and we'll be going over, as the slide says, some pre-filing tips to help you avoid some pitfalls when filing a tax return. You can go to the next slide. So here's a picture of me in case you wonder what I look like. I'm sitting in my closet right now, so I decided not to share video. This was the quiet space in my home, and the acoustics are actually pretty good. I was telling Daryl, because of all the clothes hanging up, you don't get the echo. But I'm a little bit self-conscious, so I'm not going to share my video so you see my closet to the public. But if you wonder, I showed it to Daryl earlier. You can ask him.
I can verify that he does exist, yes.
And I have grown a little bit of facial hair since we've been in the pandemic, so that's a little bit dated picture there, but we can go to the next slide. All right, so like Daryl mentioned, you know, the time's coming to file your returns. I'm sure you're all eager to file your return and get a refund if you're due one. Before we get started, before you rather get started on that process, I want to just share these tips to help you avoid some delays. You can go to the next slide. So as a reminder, your employer generally has until February 1st, which is just in a few days now, to send you your W-2. I just got mine yesterday from my previous employer. So you should wait to receive your W-2 before you file your return. Employers can request an extension, so if you haven't gotten it yet, or if you don't get it in the next few weeks, you may want to check with your employer. They may have requested an extension. Your pay stub, a lot of people want to use their pay stub to file their return, but it may not match your W-2, and that can cause delays in processing your return and for the issuance of a refund. So you should as a recommendation, we recommend that you have a record keeping system to keep all of your tax records that come in one place. I know that I've been trying to teach that to my 20-year-old son, and he knows something's important, so he'll put it away somewhere and then he cannot find it. So I've recommended just having a file, put all the letters that come in that are a tax document into the file, just, simple manila envelope, and keeps it all in one place. So that includes, of course, W-2s, 1099s, any other income documents you might be receiving. You should confirm that each payer has your current address so that they can get that to you, or if you're receiving it electronically, that they have your current electronic email address, or however else you're receiving that. So typically these forms start arriving in January. Many of you have probably already received them. Review the forms for accuracy, and if there's any discrepancies, you want to contact the payer immediately so that you can correct the issues. You can go to the next slide. So in case you didn't know, the IRS computer systems do compare income that you report on your return to what has been reported to the IRS by your payor. So that's either your employer or whoever's paying your 1099. So when the income, or when your income or withholding, federal tax withholdings don't match, this can cause a delay in the processing of the return. So they're going to hold the refund and verify that income. So as an example, if you reported $300 on your federal income tax return that you had withheld, and your employer reports $30 that was withheld, that's not going to match in the system. It's going to flag for a verification. So you just want to make sure that when you're looking at the W-2 that it matches what you expect and what you're reporting. So it's important to review that payer information when you receive them, because often people are maybe waiting for all their forms to come in and then they're going to file, but the first form that came in maybe was incorrect by the time they look at it. So it's a good habit to open it up, review it, verify that information is correct, so that when you prepare your return, you have all that information, because you do want to get it corrected before you prepare your return. Okay, next slide. So some things to check: the spelling, taxpayer identification number, your social security numbers, adoption taxpayer identification numbers, dates of birth, addresses, bank account information. Check all of that for accuracy, as I previously mentioned. If it's incorrect, contact the payer, and just as soon as possible. And in addition to that, you must have a valid social security number for all of your dependents before you file your return, in order to delay processing errors. And in certain instances, it can actually disqualify you from refundable credits, like the earned income tax credit, which we'll actually talk about a little bit later in the presentation.
And Brandon, if we could just pause here for just a second.
Sure.
And ask if there are any questions on the first few slides. And for anyone, if you'd like to unmute yourself, feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions for Brandon. Just pause here for just a couple of seconds. Okay. All right. Shall we move to the next slide, Brandon?
Sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, as Daryl mentioned at the beginning, there aren't a lot of us here now, so feel free to interrupt if you do have a question. But there is time at the end of the presentation for questions as well. So don't forget for your W-2s and 1099 other attachments need to be made if you're filing those on paper. Any income documents that shows federal income tax was withheld must be attached to your return. Again, if you're filing on paper. If you're filing electronically, follow the software provider's instructions. The software that I personally use has me retain those forms, but I just submit the return electronically. Your last, again, as I mentioned earlier, your last pay stub is not guaranteed to be accurate, and may not be what shows on your W-2, and it may not record all of your annual earnings. It could be missing some information that you need to file an accurate tax return, and that will, of course, delay your refund if you're due one. If you don't wait for that W-2 and put that information in. If you're unable to obtain a W-2 or other information like your 1099 or K-1s or whatever else that you may be receiving from a payor, from either your employer or another payor, you can contact the IRS. Their number is 800-829-1040, and their hours of operation for Alaska is 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And we do ask that you wait until after February 1st, which for this presentation is pretty close, to call for help. And if you've received unemployment compensation in 2020, then know that some of the states, they don't mail the 1099-G, and I apologize, I didn't check with unemployment insurance here in Alaska whether those are mailed out or not. But certain, in January, some people who received unemployment benefits in the prior year will get a Form 1099-G from the agency paying the benefits. And the agency will either automatically send a hard copy, or if the agency does not mail those forms, the recipient will need to visit the agency's website to get an electronic version of the form. The Form 1099-G will show the amount of unemployment compensation received. It's in box 1, and federal income tax withheld is on box 4. And the taxpayers must report the unemployment compensation income and withholding on the appropriate lines on the federal tax return. So there's more information on unemployment available on unemployment benefits chapter. It's in publication 525. If you're interested, you can go to the IRS website, type in publication 525, and pull that up, and it has more information. Here in Alaska, the state unemployment insurance would have that, would be the one sending out that form. Also, taxpayers who received a federal tax refund in 2020 may have been paid interest. So refund interest payments are taxable, and they must be reported on your federal tax form for 2020. So you'll be filing your 2020 form in this year, 2021. So if you received a refund in 2020 and there was interest on that, you need to make sure that you're including that. The IRS will send out, they've been sending out in January, Form 1099 INT for 1099 interest if you received more than $10 in interest income. So if you receive that form, it has the information you need to put on your return, and make sure that you remember to do that. Next slide, please. So information about our economic impact payments. Those are often called the stimulus payment. It can be found on the links on this slide. And so you might want to take a picture of it so that you have those links. I was actually curious if I could click on the link from a Zoom presentation, but it doesn't look like I can. So maybe take a screenshot of that so that you have it.
Brendan, this is Daryl. Just a question here. I think we're seeing some of these EIP payments show up in the form of a debit card. And have you heard? Do you know much about this by chance?
I've heard that, but I don't know much about it. Perhaps maybe Grace does.
You could chime in here. And I think that the form of basically the showing up with this in this debit card has some people curious about whether or not it's a legitimate card that's showing up in the mail. And we've been actually receiving some inquiries about that as well. I'm not sure if Grace has any kind of feedback or guidance or any information on that, but I wanted to just check in with you guys to see if you had any information on that to share.
Sure. They are sending them out by debit card. And actually, if you go to these links on irs.gov, it will show you what a picture of one of the debit cards looks like. So you can compare it and make sure that it is legitimate and it is coming out from the IRS versus a fraudulent debit card or somebody trying to get your information. And they have everything that I've seen from the people I've spoken to, what they're receiving is exactly what the picture looks like on irs.gov.
Great. That's good to know. I think it.
Daryl?
Yes.
Ms. Teresa, so I got one, and it does say Department of the Treasury on it. It says EIP card, looks like a Visa debit card. If people want more information, they can go to EIPCARD.com.
Thanks, Teresa. And that was the voice of very recent experience right there for everyone. So I know that this has been a recent thing, and we've been hearing a lot about it in our virtual offices, and I know there's some media attention being directed to as well. So any help on that is really truly appreciated.
And I do have a document I can send to you later, Daryl, that is kind of some information from that another state put together related to some fraud that they saw happening
Around the EIP.
with some of these EIP. Yeah.
Great.
So I'll see if I can locate that and forward it to you.
Okay, thanks, Brandon.
But certainly there are a lot of people taking advantage of the situation that we find ourselves in, both with the pandemic as well as some unrest in the United States, and then all these money coming in the mail to people. There are people that are certainly taking advantage, so we want to be cautious and make sure that we're not being taken advantage of.
Great, thanks for that.
So the links on the websites that are listed here, you can certainly go to those pages, especially if you received a form 1444 saying that an economic income payment was issued to you, but you didn't get it. For instructions on how to you can trace that payment. And if you didn't receive a payment in calendar year 2020, or the amount was not correct, but you qualified for the payment, you can claim that refund on your 1040 or 1040 SR for senior citizen return in 2021. So when you prepare your return this year, it's line, I believe it's line 30 that you can claim that payment, and that is the only way that you can get that payment from 2020, and that's goodness, I wrote a note down here somewhere about it. Apologize, not seeming to find it, but it's a well, there it is. It's the recovery rebate credit. It's what it's called when you claim it on your return. So if you didn't get the economic income payment, you're going to claim it as a recovery rebate credit on your line 30. And if you did receive the economic income tax payment during 2020, you should have received that form 1444 showing the amount received, and you can use that to record the amount on the worksheet on your tax return. And if you misplaced your that form 1444, to find the amount of the EIP you received, you can go to the irs.gov and search for Get Transcript, and that's a service that's provided that you can actually see the information that the IRS has on your income as well as that EIP payment. My son just used that. As I mentioned, he's had needed some documents. It was super easy to sign on and register, and then you can get to those documents. You don't need to complete any information about the recovery rebate credit on your 2020 form or your that's 1040 or 1040 SR if the economic payment in 2020 that you received was $1,200 if you're single, or $2,400 if you're a married filing joint, plus the $500 for each qualifying child in 2020. So if that's the case, if you that's the amount you received, that was the allotted recovery rebate in 2020. You don't need to claim anything on your return. If you're eligible for the economic income tax payment, but the credit based on your 2020 tax return is less than the EIP received, no repayment is required. So you kind of get a windfall there. So if you calculate it and it shows an amount less than you received, you don't really need to worry. And sorry, next slide. Form 8962 is our premium tax credit, and this must be attached to your 1040 or your 1040 NR or 1040 SR, whichever the case may be, if you're claiming the credit. And the premium tax credit, it's also known as the PTC. It's a refundable credit that helps eligible individuals and families cover premiums for the health insurance purchased through the health insurance marketplace. So to get this credit, you must meet certain requirements and file a tax return with Form 8962, premium tax credit attached. And you can, in certain circumstances, qualify to get an advanced of that credit. If you get the benefit of the advanced credit payments in any amount, or if you plan to claim the premium tax credit, you must file the federal tax return and attach the 8962. That's the premium tax credit form to your return. You claim the premium tax credit and reconcile the credit with the amount of your advanced credit payments for the years on that form, again, 8962. So if you don't normally file a return, or you wouldn't need to otherwise file a return, but you're claiming this credit, you do need to file the a tax return in order to claim the credit. And if you're filing the return without reconciling your advance payments when claiming the PTC, it can delay the refund and may affect future advance credit payments. So you just want to make sure that you're doing that on the form. For more information on claiming the premium tax credit, you can visit the addresses listed here on this slide. And there's also another publication on the IRS website. It's publication 974 that provides more information on that credit. You use the information on Form 1095A, which is the health insurance marketplace statement, to claim the credit or reconcile advance credit payments on that form, that again 8962. We love our form numbers here at the IRS, so sometimes I feel like I'm a robot talking about the same numbers over and over, but there's also Form 1095A. It does not get attached to the tax return, but it's needed to complete your Form 8962. The marketplace will send you a health insurance marketplace statement, and that is that form I just mentioned, 1095A, by January 31st of the year following the year of coverage. So your coverage year is 2020. You should receive that form from the marketplace by the end of this month. This form shows the amount of premiums for you and for your family's healthcare plans, and the form also includes other information such as advanced credit. Sorry, I just got to pop up on my computer. This form shows premiums that show advanced credit payments made on your behalf that you will need to compute your premium tax credit. So if you've also received a Form 1095B or 1095C, those are unrelated to the marketplace, you can go to the irs.gov website and search for those forms to get more information about what is needed for those. And as a note, that 1095A, sometimes people do try to complete that themselves. That's not a form that you complete by yourself. That's that needs.
Brandon, are you still there? We may have lost Brandon. Grace, are you there?
I'm still here, yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Oh, Brandon's back. Okay.
Oh. Okay. So how long was I gone?
Just a few seconds.
Okay, good. Well, I don't know what happened. Apparently muting myself and unmuting myself fixes it. So
Good to know.
please let me know if I fall off again.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to make sure people know that we are recording this program. These are some long website addresses. And if people can either take a screenshot of it or maybe take a photo of it with their phone, I know that's a lot to write down. There's an opportunity for mistakes if people try to write this whole website down. But we are recording it. So if you do need to go back at some point and get to these sites again, it is available. It will be available on AARP's YouTube site.
And I also have a PDF, this presentation, that I can send to you.
Great.
If anyone wanted to have it emailed to them, I'll send it to you, and maybe you could disperse it to them.
Good to know. Thanks, Brandon.
Yep. So I don't know if when I cut out, but I did mention that the Form 1095A, sometimes people try to complete that form themselves. And that's not a form that you can complete by yourself. It needs to be completed by the marketplace or the insurance agency or the company that you receive your coverage through.
Okay.
So just make sure that if you didn't get your form, that you contact that source to get your form, because it won't be accepted if you're completing it yourself. So if you didn't get a Form 1095A, you can, here's some places you can go to get it other than just contacting them. If you purchase the coverage through the through the federally facilitated marketplace, and you set up a healthcare.gov account, you can go and get a copy at that website through the marketplace. If you purchased coverage through state-based marketplace, you may be able to get an electronic copy of that 1095A from the state-based marketplace account. So you want to sign in there and see if you can get it there. And if you have received it, or excuse me, if you've not received it, or you received an incorrect 1095A, you should contact the marketplace from which you received your coverage to get it corrected. And if you do receive a corrected or voided 1095A, you need to make sure that you file an amended return. So if you receive that either after you've filed your tax return, you want to make sure you correct that. All right, next slide. So as a reminder, schools have until January 31st to provide Form 1098T. So it can be provided by mail or electronically. If you should be getting a 1098T and you haven't received it by the end of the month, you'll want to contact the institution. And generally, I allow several. I attend school out of state, so online, and I want to make sure that I wait 5 days for the mail to get up here because they have until the 31st to mail it. Okay, next slide. And make sure you're using current tax year data to avoid mistakes. That seems kind of like a no-brainer, but when we use tax preparer software, sometimes it's easy to overlook that. So if you're using software and it's pulling in prior year data, you'll want to check that only current year information is present, and that prior year data didn't transfer over, which can obviously cause an error. So if you're using the same software as you did last year, it may pre-populate the return and with your prior income information. So just make sure you double check that. So as an example, if you reported wages from your W-2 in your prior year of $25,000, and then in 2020 you got a W-2 and you had wages of $30,000, and therefore you input that into the software. Some software can keep the wages from the prior year of 25,000, and now you've overstated your income, and that will delay and can hold up your return. So just make sure that it only has your current year information in it. Okay, next slide. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, we're going to talk about the earned income tax credit. So we'll do a refresher here. It's always important to keep the EITC requirements in mind, as a lot of tax return errors involve claiming this very credit. So we do see a lot of errors, and we see a lot of issues come to us because of it. So this is something to look out for. Not only does earned income figure into the adjusted gross income claimed on your tax return, but also other income. So the AGI, or adjusted gross income, must be the same or less than a specific income limit each year, and we'll go over that in a future slide. This varies from year to year. Income limits also change based on the number of children being claimed or a different filing status is selected, and that's all on a future slide. So and that for the 2020 year. The easiest way to determine if you're eligible to take the credit is to use the EITC assistant tool. It's on irs.gov. And you or your spouse and anyone being claimed for the EITC must all have social security numbers that are valid for employment. And you need to have that before you file your tax return, including extensions. So if you don't have that valid social security number before you file, you may have, or you may not be able to go back and claim it later. So it's really important to make sure that you have that, that valid number for employment. And then on bullet 3 here, there's a bunch of acronyms. That's another thing that we love at the IRS. I'm learning lots of different acronyms. The first ones, these ones I think most of us already know, but I'm going to go over them anyway. Married filing jointly is the MFJ. Head of household is the next. Qualifying widower, and married filing separate. And of those, married filing separate is the only one filing status that does not qualify for the EITC. If you have a foreign income that's reported on your 2555 or 2555 EZ, this will also disqualify you from receiving the EITC. And there are instances when you may still qualify for this credit, even if you don't have a child or if you have a grandchild living with you. So if you meet the rules for those without a qualifying child, or you have a qualifying child in a special circumstance, this information is available on irs.gov, and we'll provide some good resources on a future slide for that. So one important thing to mention, particularly in this year, is that unemployment compensation is not considered earned income, and therefore the taxpayers receiving unemployment compensation may report less income for the purposes of computing the EITC, resulting in a reduction or elimination of the credit. While others may have in prior years qualified, or rather did not qualify for the credit because of income was too high, they may qualify this year if they were receiving unemployment. And we'll not go into the topic in depth today, but if you want more information about how unemployment may affect many things on your tax return this year, you can visit our website. That's the Taxpayer Advocate Service website, and read what the National Taxpayer Advocate, she has a blog. It's titled, "Did you know the unemployment compensation is taxable and could impact a taxpayer's earned income tax credit?" So we do want you to know that the National Taxpayer Advocate is aware of the situation. She's making a recommendation in our annual report that we send to Congress this year, that the Congress allow unemployment compensation to be included as qualifying income in computing the EITC during national disasters like we're having, to help more taxpayers be able to retain their qualification for this. It's an important credit a lot of people use. And then new for this year is a provision under the Taxpayer Certainty and Disaster Tax Relief Act of 2020. You may elect to use your 2019 earned income figure for 2020 earned income tax credit. So if your 2019 earned income is more than your 2020 earned income, and it's going to benefit you more, you can use that just for calculating this credit. And for more information about that, you can go to the instructions for the 1040. It's the instructions that talk about line 27. All right, next slide.
All right, we're working on it, Brandon, here. Let's see if
Sorry.
we can get it to.
This one's got a bunch of numbers on it, so I don't want to start talking before we get it up.
How's that?
There we go. All right. So as you can see on this slide, it's these are the limits for the earned income tax credit, and across the top is how many children you would have, or what the limits are based on how many children that you can claim. So that first column, or that first column, is the single head of household or widowed. If you have no children, the income limit would be $15,820, and if you had 3 children, it's $50,954. It's the limit. And if you're married filing jointly with no children, the limit's $21,710, and you can read the other if you have 1, 2, or 3 children. Interest, or rather investment income limit is $3,050 or less for 2020, and then maximum credit amount that you can receive for the year is for 3 or more qualifying children is $6,660, and then if you have no qualifying children, it's $538, and the others are listed right there on that slide. But for an example, if you are married filing joint and your income is under $47,646, you have no investment income, and you have 2 qualifying children, then you can just follow that down and see that you would qualify on that second bullet under maximum credit for $20,000 in that example. And you can access more information. That's well, you can't really see the link, can you? I might have to update our PDF to actually show the link. So that's on the IRS website. It's a credits and deductions link that's for whatever reason we decided not to show as a link on the page. So But if you go to the IRS website and search for the EITC credit, where that link was taking you. All right, next slide. So EITC payments, as I mentioned earlier, they are a big issue. They're a big issue every year. That, as I mentioned, I've only been here 4 months, but I understand that this is a recurring issue that we see again and again. And so here's some helpful tips to watch out for, so that you don't do these common errors. So the first is the biggest dollar amount of errors is someone claiming a child who is not their qualifying child, especially concerning whether the child is related to you or if one of the eligible or one of the other eligible options to claim a child, and whether the child lived with you for more than half the year. So again, they need to be qualifying, either related or whatever the other qualifying options are that are listed in the 1040 instructions, and they need to have lived with you for more than half the year. The second, most common one that we see is incorrectly reporting income or expenses, and this is particularly on Schedule C, and Schedule C is for those who are self-employed. So this accounts for 20% to 32% of the total dollars on approximately 65% of the returns that we see in error. The third most common error is filing as single or head of household when you are actually married. This is still a member of the top 3, but the good news is that we are seeing this one decline. So make sure that you're claiming your correct filing status. And then last but not least, we see errors causing the name and social security numbers that don't match with the IRS Social Security Administration records. So this continues to be a problem. Watch for spelling and double check the number. So I suspect that most of these errors probably are just a mistake. Another part of this problem is that someone else may be using a child's social security number. So you need to ask yourself, did this child live with someone else during the year? Is there anyone else that might be claiming this child? Because those are the common errors, that someone's claiming that same socials, or that you have a typo. You can visit irs.gov for more information on the most common errors to avoid what's being shown here, and this time it is an actual link. Okay, next slide. So this slide just basically is some more resources. Again, I'll have a PDF that I'll send to Daryl, or as he mentioned, this is being recorded, so you can go and pause the recording, write them down. They are fairly long links. But there are some of the main resources you definitely want to check out before you file your return. The EIT Assistant is also available in Spanish, and by answering the questions and providing basic income information, you can use the EIT Assistant to find out if you're eligible for the EITC, determine if the child or children meet the test for the qualifying child, and estimate the amount of your credit. So it's pretty helpful. Please understand that there are consequences that can occur for incorrect EITC claims. So those consequences, they can include from a delay of your EITC or part of your refund until the error can be corrected. And if this happens, the delay can take several months. So you could also have a denial of all or part of the EITC. And if it's denied, you must pay back the amount of the EITC, and that includes interest. So it's important to make sure you get it right up front, because you don't want to be paying that interest. You may need to file a special form to claim the EITC again in the future. That's Form 8862 if you're interested. And if the error is because of a reckless or intentional disregard of the rules, the IRS could ban you from claiming the EITC for 2 years. And if the error is because of fraud, then they can ban you up to 10 years. So from claiming the credit. So last but not least, we know that if you claim the earned income tax credit or the additional child tax credit on your tax return, by law, neither the IRS nor TAS can issue the refund before mid-February. However, generally, those refunds do start to be released around the first week of March. So you'll need to check the irs.gov for information on when these refunds will be released exactly. But please just don't call the IRS or TAS prior to that time frame looking for your refund. We won't be able to help, and it ties up the lines. All right, and that brings us to our next slide, which is questions.
And anyone's welcome to unmute at this point. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute and we'll entertain your questions.
I'll unmute.
Okay.
So I'm just a little disappointed with the time that I spent as a senior, an AARP member. It appears to me that you spent a lot of time on earned income credits, which is child related, and unemployment, which isn't usually, seniors don't usually go on unemployment, and the marketplace statement for health insurance, and most seniors are getting Medicare. So they're basically, I signed up because I wanted to know how the IRS looks at Social Security income as far as other income. And so I just have to say that as a senior who has had, somebody prepare my taxes in the past, because we had a family business and a lot of miscellaneous income. And, with the pandemic now, the business basically has gone into bankruptcy. And so instead of having that income, we're going to have to look at our Social Security income and try to plan with that for the future, and also save money by trying to do our own taxes in the future. And so I just have to tell you that I was disappointed, but thank you for the time.
Thank you for your comments, Don. I really do appreciate those. And I'm sorry to hear about what the pandemic brought on you, but while we have you on here, Donna, do you have any specific questions for Brandon or Grace around Social Security?
Well, it's just my understanding that it's taxed differently from other income, and I don't know anything about really what that is, or if there's certain limits. And it's kind of like, I'm like, okay, if I have, say, $5,000 of business income from this past year, and or in this year, the current year, if I wind up with $5,000 to $10,000 of business income, and I decide to take my Social Security and have my husband take his Social Security with a retro, which gives us a chunk of money, next year in taxes, am I going to have pushed myself over a limit where I'm going to have to pay higher amounts on the income from Social Security? Is there something in the, and I'm sorry, I see now it was more related to getting your forms together or planning for filing rather than actual questions about, things like this about, and so, maybe I'm in the wrong place, and I should apologize, but I was just looking for help.
No worries. That's completely understandable, Donna. And while we've got Brandon and Grace on the phone, do either of you want to kind of address that question?
So first of all, thank you for the feedback. I recognize that this is an AARP is our partner here. The presentation is the same presentation that we give in all the states and at this time for what to watch out for, and it's put together by our national office. But I hear you have a specific question about Social Security and about business income. Generally speaking, Social Security income is taxed. Business income is obviously also taxed, it sounds like you've used a preparer in the past and you're wanting to do it yourself this year. If you qualify for the free filing, you can go onto the IRS website and look up the free filing. There are a lot of different providers out there that have different criteria for if you meet their criteria, you can file for free and use their software for free. If you want to, there are other options out there that you can pay for software, obviously, to do the preparation. I've used several of them myself. I found them quite helpful for both business income, and I'm sure they have a lot of answers on Social Security as well. I hesitate getting into specifics on your preparation, but is there anything that you wanted to add to that, Grace?
Not too terribly much. I mean, it is going to vary depending on the type of income that you have on your return as to how much of your Social Security will be taxable. So it really, unfortunately, is something that you do need to get into your specifics of your tax issues with, and not really something that we would want to discuss in more depth on this kind of a call. But I would urge you, if you guys do fit within, I know a lot of the free services have income limit requirements. If you guys do fit within that, to get in contact with somebody that can provide you with the assistance. I know a lot of the like TurboTax that you can purchase at Costco, those are pretty darn user friendly. If you guys do need assistance with that, they do have call-in phone numbers so that you can call and actually talk with somebody at TurboTax if you do have questions while filling out your taxes. But unfortunately, it is really going to depend on what is on your specific return. And we can't just set a dollar limit and say, okay, if you have, wages of this amount's going to be taxable of your Social Security. So it really is more of a specific issue or question for your preparer or when you're filling out your return.
All right, thanks, Chris. Appreciate that. And Donna, thank you so much for your feedback, and thank you for your question. I know these are difficult times for all of us, and new and difficult circumstances, which is why we're trying to get this kind of information out to folks. And sometimes we may miss the target just a little, but we do want to make sure we get as accurate information as we can out to everyone. So I do really appreciate your feedback on that, and thanks for honestly sharing with us. It is very helpful for us. And Brandon, with that, we're just about 4 minutes for the top of the hour here. Brandon, I know you have a hard stop at 1 o'clock. Would you like to just sort of call it a wrap for the day on this, and maybe pick up at some point in the near future?
Certainly. The second half of this presentation is about TAS and what we do, and that may or may not interest you, but if you meet the qualifications for assistance with TAS, it may be much more on point for you. So okay. Yeah, perhaps we could schedule something in the future to give that presentation.
That's great. That would be sort of a nice teaser for the next presentation, and we can talk about Taxpayer Advocate Service. I appreciate that. I appreciate your flexibility on this, that's for sure. And I do want to point out one more thing before we stop the presentation today. That is, again, updated information from the AARP Foundation on the AARP Tax Aid Program. Hopefully you can all see it on the screen now. This is the most up-to-date information that we have about the current situation the tax aid program is facing. And you can see that our site, which is normally our state office, is closed. All our tax aid sites are closed, and taxes are being prepared by appointment only. You can call 211 or 800-478-2221 for information on how to make an appointment. There's a website there also you can visit for more information. I'll leave this screen up for a couple of minutes here in case you want to take a photo of it, write the information down, take a screenshot of it. Feel free to do that. And with that, Brandon and Grace, do you have a couple final thoughts for us here in the last minute or two?
I think my final thoughts are just that be aware that the Taxpayer Advocate Service is here to serve you. We assist taxpayers that are having hardships, and again, we'll go much more into depth in a future presentation. But if you are experiencing financial hardship and need assistance with either getting a refund or whatever is maybe delaying something at the IRS, we're here to help. Or if you've tried to get an issue resolved with the IRS and they've not met the timelines they've told you they're going to meet, again, we're here to help. Great,
thanks, Brandon. Anything from you, Grace?
Just a final thought kind of on the preparation for tax season. A lot of people who have had issues regarding ID theft in the past, Just a reminder that every year the IRS will reissue the IP PIN so that they can file their returns. Those should be coming out, and if both husband and wife or spouse are part of ID theft, they would both have their own IP PIN, and so they just need to make sure that those are also on their tax returns, whether they file electronically or paper, because if they're not, that will slow down the process and their returns will not get processed nearly as fast.
Great, that's good to know. Great information. Thanks for sharing that. And with that, I would like to thank Brandon and Grace for taking the time to join us today. Sorry about the little technical glitches we had there for a few seconds, but we will come back in the near future with more information on Taxpayer Advocate Service. You can look for that for ARP social media, on ARP Alaska social media, as well as our website, and that's www.arp.org/ak. Again, that's www.arp.org/ak. All right, so it's just 1 o'clock now. I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. Thank everyone for being with us today, and just be on the lookout for more information as we all enjoy the 2021 tax season. With that, thanks so much and have a great day.
Thank you.